learning as a schus for Shleima Filan Chaya Baserach. We are holding, a little bit less than halfway down on Samach Vav Amud Aleph, but I just want to redo the beginning of the Amud so that it will set us up for this Machlekes Abaye and Rava legabe whether it's nice and tam is whether it's been but it depends on tam or shame whether it's something's min b'mina. So chamra atika. So right on the top of the Amud, chamra atika be'invi divrei akol b'nois and tam. If you have old chamra that got mixed into grapes, everyone's going to agree it's benois and tam. Chaber chata envy, but if you have new grapes that taste the same as new wine that got mixed into grapes, so they both taste like grapes, but they're two separate things. One is wine or grape juice, and the other one is grapes. Abaya says it's min b'mina. They both have the same tam, so they're considered min b'mina. Rava benois and tam. Rava says it's benois and tam. It's considered min b'she'enim mina because one thing is wine and one thing is grapes. Abaya b'mashu basa time azin. I divide chad taimu. Tahavale min b'mina b'mashu. Abaya says it's all the same tam. It's a new wine with grapes. They taste the same, so they're min b'mina. And min b'mina, as you know, is mochamer that even a mashu of iser, if you have yayin nesach, even a mashu of yayin nesach of new wine that tastes like the grapes, it's going to answer the grapes. Obviously, we're talking about where it's split and the wine is getting into the grapes. But Rava amma b'nois and tam. Rava says b'nois and tam. Basu shmazin v'hai shmaluchud v'hai shmaluchud. He says we go after the shame, the name of it, and one thing is grapes and one thing is wine. So therefore, v'avli min b'she'enim mina, min b'she'enim mina b'nois and tam. So Gemara try to bring a raya from a Mishnah. The Gemara assumes it's talking about new wine that fell onto grapes. So according to Abai, they both have the same tam. Ma'ila benoisen tam. And l'chayra, as we're going to say from the Seifa, from the end of the Mishnah, we'll conclude that this is the case that's talking about benoisen tam, that there's enough wine to give a taste. So b'mashu, it could even be b'mashu, and that will be, so that according to Abaya, it's not a kasha, even though it's min b'minai, it's not b'noisen tam, it's b'mashu, because he holds this min b'minai. Ha frek demara. Hamidktani save is akal kosher banoser b'noisen tam, also kosher banoser b'noisen tam mutter. We said if it's noisen tam gam, it's going to be mutter. And so we must be talking about, the Mishnah is generally talking about a case where there's enough of the Isser to be nice and tam. So it is shver in Abaye. You can't say that it's talking about where it's just a mashu that asses, because according to Abaye, it should be, if it's new wine with grapes, it should be this chadmin, and therefore it should be b'mashu. Abaye will answer, the Mishnah is talking about old wine that tastes different, and therefore it's min b'she'enim, and that's why we say it has to have a nice and tam in order to be us. Sagt Gemara weiter. Chala de chamra v'chala de shechra. If you have vinegar made out of wine vinegar, and beer vinegar, so they're different names, and v'chamir de chita v'chamir de sari. Abaye says it's going to be menois and tam. It's two different. It's going to be two different, like the Gemara explains. Basa time azin v'hay time eluchad v'hay time eluchad. Whether we're talking about beer vinegar with wine vinegar, even though it's both vinegar, they're two separate timim. They taste different. So therefore, the amount of, if let's say the wine vinegar is yayin nesach, or it's whatever iser it is. I don't know if vinegar has a din of yayin, right? We said if it becomes vinegar, it loses its. I think it loses its status. Not sure. I don't remember. But in any case, if it's iser, if one of the things is iser, it has to be an amount of nois and tam. Since they have different tastes, they're considered to be two minim. and the standard of the amount of issa you need for that is nois and tam. Rava Amar b'mashu. Rava says in these cases of the wine vinegar and the beer vinegar, or I'm sorry, I didn't really touch chamir dechita, chamir desari. Chamir over here is the kol chamira v'chamir deikar bershusi. When we say by bittul chametz, it's talking about chametz. I think it's talking about like the starter. What we talk about, we call sa'ar, the starter that you use to make sourdough. So if you have some starter that was made from wheat and some that was made from barley, so it's the same thing. The two things they're both called starters. They're both called chametz or sa'ar, but they have different tastes. So it's similar to beer vinegar and wine vinegar. In any case, back to where we're up to, Rava Amar b'mashu. Rava says we'll go basar mashu, basar shmoazlin, v'hai chala mikri, v'hai chala mikri, v'hai chamir mikri, v'hai chamir mikri. Either the beer vinegar and the wine vinegar are both called vinegar, and the starter dough, whether it's made from barley or from wheat, is all called starter, or it's called sa'ar or chamira, since they have the same name, according to Rava, that's the standard by which determines whether it's min b'minai, b'mashu. Where do I get this from? That we go after the tam in determining whether it's considered to be min b'mina. The Tanya. Tavlin beis v'gimel shemis v'hei min echad. If you have spices of three different names, but they're all the same type, Rashi gives an example: black pepper and white pepper and long pepper, all these different spices made out of these different peppers. So they're different subcategories within the same type. Oy min gimel, or if it's three minim, and let's say one of them has a iser is also als truma, and one is also als arla, and one is also als meiser sheni. Or if you have three different minim, but they're all the same iser, they're all truma, they're all arla. Asur no mitzdarfen. If they give a tam together, if you need all three of them, let's say you have a little bit of black pepper, a little white pepper, a little long pepper, and you mix them together, and they only are nice and tam with the three of them together, they can be mitzdarf. We don't look at it that none of them on their own are able to give a tam, but you are mitzdarf. You coalesce them together and treat them as a single unit. And Chizki explains the second din that we say min gimel asurin, even though either different shemus. He says that even though the three separate things that all have the same iser, they could be mitzdaref because we're talking about different sweet things. So, for example, it's brown sugar and it's honey and it's a NutraSweet or molasses. So they all are mitzdaref. The reason why they're mitzdaref, even though they are different things, is because they all have the same taste. They all give the tam of sweetness. So yeah, so we can understand according to Abaye that determining the min goes by tam, by taste. So they all have the same sweet taste. That puts them together. They can be mitzdaref. Because the Rabbi says it doesn't work according to you, Rava, that we look at the shemus. These are three separate things. Rava says you can't compare the din legabe mitzdarf legabe iser to the din of min b'minai, whether two things are considered the same min, legabe the din of whether you need a mashu or a nice and tam in order to asa. We're going according to Remeir over there. The Tanya Behuda I'm Mishum Remeir. Minayin l'chol yishun shebetar shemitzaf and zem zeh shenem l'soichel kol te'eva. We learn from a pasuk. The Torah says you shouldn't eat any te'eva. Kol sheti after l'cha, whatever I ask it to you as a te'eva, hareyu b'bal toichel. That tells you can't eat it, and it all gets mitzdaref legabi iser. It doesn't over there. The Torah made a very broad inclusion that any kind of iser could be mitzdaref together to make something awesome. Not legabi the din that it's considered min b'mina, it's a nois and tam together. But it's a general din according to Remeir that includes many, many things that anytime you have different isurim, even if they're different minim, even if they're separate, we mitzdaref them together in the cheshbon of whether they ask.
So in the case of Chalad the Chamra and Chalad the Shikra, Rava would agree that Remeir would say that it's aser with a mashahu.
I'm
Because we
I
are
don't
talking about
know.
mitzarfim.
I don't know if that's included. Like he's talking about the din of whether you mitzaref isurin together, whether they can be included together to get it to make a shear. Over here, we're talking about whether two things are considered to be similar or not, min b'minay for the din of nois and tam. So I don't know. I don't know if Meir's shita impacts on this din, on our.
Well, yeah, you have two isurin. Well, not two isurin. If you have an or,
We're trying to
oh,
say
you're
whether
saying over there
it's
the
also
shloisha, the
is the same min as the thing that's
shloisha,
mutter.
all three were aser. In our
Right.
case, one was mutter, one was aser.
Right. So we're trying to say if these things we have something that's also together, something was other, the same
Interesting.
min. I don't know
Got
that
it.
they
Right.
directly
Interesting.
impact that. Sagt Gemara, chalal legoy chamra. If you mixed in vinegar that was usher into wine, divrei akol b'nois and tam. Everyone agrees. These are two separate things. It's both a different shame as well as a different tam. So it's going to you need nois and tam in order to aser. Chamra legoy chala, but the other way around. If wine fell into vinegar, there's going to be a specific reason why in that case it's going to be a machlekes. Abaya ama b'mashu. Abaya says it's a mashu. So Rashi says, let's see, the avacham legechala, mishasha higia avir hakli. As soon as wine goes into the space, gets close to the vinegar, nepach hayayim bereich lereich hachametz. Vinegar is a very overpowering aroma. When the wine gets close to it, before it touches the vinegar, it gets the smell of vinegar from it. So they both smell the same before they're mixed. So therefore, Abaya says it would be a mashu. It's considered mimbamina. It becomes mimbamina just because of the physics of it, the science of it is that the wine turns into vinegar before they mix together. So it becomes the vinegar that has the isser of yayin esech, and therefore it's also even mashu. Rava Amma b'nois and tam. Rava says no, he doesn't agree with this because he doesn't hold. As we're going to see, the Gemara is going to explain the reason. Abaya Amma b'mashu reicha chala. The time of chamra chala, Rash, according to Abaya, if something has the smell of vinegar, but it still tastes like wine, it gets a din of vinegar. So now, when you have your chamra that fell into the vinegar, it gets the smell of chala, it gets the smell of vinegar, it's treated as chala, so it's mimbamini. Valu mimbamini, v'chol mimbamini b'mashu. Rava b'noisin tam, reiche chala v'taim of chamra. If the smell is vinegar and the taste is chamra, it remains one. We don't wine. It does not dictate the taste. It's considered two separate things still. It's wine into vinegar. So this is very interesting, which I found out. I mean, I really knew about this before, but I found out b'chush during COVID when I lost my sense of smell. I also lost my sense of taste. So I'm very sympathetic to what Abai is saying. The two are very intrinsically linked. And it's pretty hard to have something that smells like one thing and tastes like something else. Because your taste, I remember hearing about this, that your taste really is dictated by the way something smells. It's your olfactory glands inside your nostrils or inside your breathing apparatus that tells you what something tastes, not really your tongue. In any case, that's a machlekes Abaye and Rava, that Abaye says that it's dictated by the smell, and Rava says no, it goes basar that even it goes basar the taste in spite of the smell. Um, it's interesting that in a way this is the opposite of what Abaye's and Rava's originally disagreement. That Abaye said that Mimba Mina is dictated by Tam, and Rava said it's dictated by shame. And now Abaye is the one who's saying that the smell changes it. And now he's saying it's not it's the smell instead of the taste. And Rav is saying that we don't care we don't care about the smell. But it's The truth is, it's not really a machlokes. It's not really a difference. They're saying how much does smell affect taste. It's not really Abaya going back on what he said that min b'min is determined by taste. So tomorrow, hi bastia. Bastia was a kind of a way to sample or test wine. They would stick a straw into the side, or there was a hole in the side of the barrel, and someone who was an expert would inhale in the smell and decide whether the wine was viable, was a good wine. So Ovid Yechavim the Yisrael. If Ovid Yechavim smells the wine of Yisrael Shapardam, it's certainly no problem. He hasn't affected the wine in any way. He hasn't moved it. There's no chash of ayin nesach. He's just testing it to see what it smells like. Yisrael with Ovid Yechavim, but if Yisrael smells Ovid Yechavim's yayin nesach, Abaya Amar Asa, Rava Amar Mutter. Abaya Amar Asa Reicha Milsi. Abaya says reach when one person inhales the smell, he's tasting it. Like we said before, this is really part of what we were saying before, that Abaye is l'shitase in a way, that Abaye says that min b'mina is b'nois in time. And then he says that smell is dispositive because he holds smell is the same thing as tasting. So he holds reicha, when you smell something, you're tasting it. And certainly a yid is also to taste yayin nesach. I mean, I didn't see anyone else saying this. I would assume this Gemara is talking about. I know I'm sure I'm wrong because it's not the way the Mefarshim explain it. But to me, it would seem we're talking about stam yenam, that is aser b'shtia and mutar b'hana. So according to Abaya, it's going to be aser because you're smelling it because that's shtia. And Rava Amar Mutter reicha lav milsi. He says reicha is not a substantive. It doesn't have a din of tam. So therefore, it's mutter. So Rav is
The Jew's not getting paid for this, is he?
no, he's not getting paid, right, for sure. So, because then it would be nana from the yain, it was a biasa. He's not allowed to work for wine. But the problem is why? How could Rav say it's mutter? Even if it's lav milsi, that it's not considered tasting, it's l'chayr he's having hana from the smell, the good smell of wine. So Taisus has an explanation that when you're smelling something to determine its properties, it's very strong smell. It's not a pleasant smell. A general smell of sniffing a cup of wine is one thing, but when you're sticking your head into a barrel of wine, it's overwhelming. It doesn't smell good. But I don't see why you can't be talking about stam yenam, which is mutar b'hana. It's only aser b'shtia.
I'm just practically speaking. How could you avoid when you pass by a goyish restaurant? You smell. So you doing an isser?
There's no isser on treif. It's only yayin nesach that there's isser hana. I guess basa b'chalav is asa b'hana, but it's only when they're cooked together. It's not. I don't think it's so easy to have basa b'chalav b'daraisa. That's asa b'hana. I mean, I don't know if putting cheese on top of a burger. I'm not sure if I think it had to be mixed together. I don't know, but in any case, so you're saying maybe you should have to walk around the street to avoid the smell if you hold a reicha milsahi, especially if you say it's like you're tasting something.
Right, and then you can't even walk down the street.
I hear. I don't know. First of all, I don't know if we paskin like Abai and Rava. Normally we paskin, but like Rava, we only paskin like Abai b'yal kagam. This is not one of the yal kagam. I don't know, but other than that, I don't really have what to tell you. I could see why it would be a problem. I have a feeling. I know, like when I looked into when I learned at one point basa b'chalav, it wasn't so easy to have something have a din of basa b'chalav. Like it's not just that you slap. If someone has a sandwich with a ham and cheese sandwich, that's a din of basa b'chalav. That's also b'hana.
And then it has to be cooked together.
It has to be cooked together. It's putting something on top of something else. Like what? Even though the truth is the goyim are always cooking, they put cheese in everything. And if they make yeah. Anyway, I don't really find myself walking past too many goyish restaurants that I could smell them. To be honest with you. Maybe I don't walk past a hot dog stand. Even that. The truth is, I haven't smelled anything since COVID. I still can't really smell. I have to like really stick my nose into that psalm thing on Matzah Shabbos. It's very good when I had the 9 babies in the house. It was good to be potter from that. So in any case, so this is the machlokes Rav and Abaya. Rava says Reichel Milsi. Abaya says Milsi. Amar Rav Mina Aminul de Reichel V'Lei Klumu. Where do I know that smell is not important? The Tanan Taner Shisika B'Kamen Shel Truma. If someone used I think they did this for as a beneficial thing. They used certain types of wood made out of cumin, with cumin on it, with a spice in it, that would impart a flavor to the bread that was later baked in it. And this spice was truma spice. Va'afa bayas hapas, and then they later, after they finished burning the wood with the spice in it, so they left the coals there, and the coals baked bread. Hapas muteres. The pas is mutter even for a non-kohen. Lefisha ain't tam common ela reicha common. Since it's not a taste of common, but it's only a reich, you only get a smell from the wood that was burned with it. Abaya would distinguish. He would say, even though that's true over there, that it will be mutter, even though I hold reicha milsi, it would still be mutter. Shani hasan the mikli surah. Over there, since the spice of truma was burnt up before the smell was imparted, it was just coals that were left over. So there's no such thing as reicha milsa when the original benefactor of the smell, the thing that was imparting the smell, is no longer extant. So at the time that the reich was put into the bread, the truma was no longer around. So that's not going to be a milsa. That won't be. It doesn't have the capability of transporting the isser into something new after it's no longer in existence. Amar Rav Meri. Rav Meri says this machlokes of whether reicha milsi or not is a machlokes hanaya. L'chayr haroy de paschama. Someone who he separated the paschama. If you ever been where they make lafa in a restaurant, they slap it on the side of the oven. So radias hapas is the process of taking the bread off of the side of the oven. The nasna al pi chavis, he took the hot bread and put it on top of a chavis shel yayin shel truma, on top of a barrel of wine of truma. So the smell from the yayin of truma went into the hot bread. Remeya oisav Rabbi Yehuda matir. Remeya says it's aser because reicha is milsahi, and Rabbi Yehuda l'chayr is matir because reicha la milsi. Rabbi Yosi matir b'shel chitin v'oisav b'shel soirim neishasa oirim sheyabes. Rabbi Yosi splits the difference. He holds that reicha is a milsahi, but it depends. Not everything absorbs a smell. It's only hot bread made out of barley that has the ability to absorb, but bread of wheat is not so absorbing. It doesn't take in the smell. So my labakamifli the marsav reicha milsi l'chayra Remeir and l'chayra Rabbi Yosi as well hold the reicha as a milsahi. And Rabbi Yehuda, who is matir, it's because he holds it doesn't make a difference that it got a smell. We don't care about the smell. It doesn't make it truma. Zaktamar l'Rava, who says reichel milsahi vade tanoi. There's no way if you hold reichel milsahi, how are you answering this bread if it doesn't make a tam? L'Abaya, but Abaya, there's a way to get out of it. He doesn't have to say that that Rabbi Yehuda is chaylik on him. Mi lemetanoi amalach Abaya la mi itma la amar b'chanam Rav Shlakish bepascham b'chavis psucha. If it was the bread was still hot, even though we said roy des apas, so it sounded like it was hot. But he says if it's hot bread and the barrel is open, divrei kol asura. Even Rabbi Yehuda was matir, he would agree under those circumstances. Also, because he also agrees that that reicha milsi. But if it was cold bread and the chavis was closed, everyone would agree it's mutter. The only machlokes is only where it was either hot bread and a closed barrel, or cold bread and a open barrel. I'm not sure how a closed barrel brings out a reich to get into the bread. I guess it goes through, it wafts through somehow, and if the bread is hot, that would be enough for the for the faint flavor going through the closed cask to get into the bread. And my case, Lagabi the Bastia, where you're smelling directly from the wine, that's similar to hot bread on top of a open cask, and that's therefore it's milsi. But it's not a machlokes Tana. According to me, we say even the Manda Amar, the Tana who says that it's mutter, would agree that reicha milsi. Sagt the Maravaita. Ze'akla kol sheba noser b'noisen tam. The Mishnah ended off that although we say a noisen tam, if it's min b'she'enim minay is aser, that's only what's a noisen tam l'shvach. But it's noisen tam l'fgam, then it's mutter. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, hachi hilchasu. They said this is taka the halacha that noisen tam l'fgam is mutter. Amar Rav Yehuda Mashmuel, lo yishanu shenafel tek grisen roisten. This is only talking about that when we said that the last din of the Mishnah was talking about it gave an example in Noisen Tam Lefgam where wine fell onto to certain types of legumes. So he says it's only when it's hot beans. I will not like grisen sign. If they were cold beans, pertichon, and then after he put in the cold beans, he then warmed it up. Putting wine onto hot beans. We're talking about wine, right? What was the Mishnah? Yeah.
There was vinegar.
It was vinegar,
Right.
right? But it was vinegar that was yayin nesach, right? So the vinegar, when it goes onto cold beans, that's a normal dish that they would make, and that was mashpiach. It's only when it gets hot that the vinegar is a noisen tam lefgam. That which we say it's noisen tam lefgam if it was hot beans. In that case, it was first mashbiachet, and then later on it became pagum. So as long as at the time that you put it in, it was mashbiach, then it's not nice and tam lefgam. If it was nice and tam, it's going to be us. V'chenki aser of dimi. Zak the Gemara, and this is also when he came also v'chacha yu'osim ba'arvi shabbos b'tzipari. Reb Dimi said the same din. He said the same halacha, and he also said that that's taka the way they would make their legabi shab for Shabbos. They would make their cold beans with vinegar. That was the bean salad that they made. So it was l'shvach. But shachlayim, they called it shachlayim. That was the name. They called this. So it was a very accepted dish, and it wasn't lifgam. Amar Ishlakish. Noisen tam lefgam she'amru lo she'yomer kadei rezu chasera melech yisera melech chasera tavlin yisera tavlin. When we say that something is noisen tam lefgam, it's not talking about a case where the food beforehand, there was a chicken soup that was missing some salt, and then you added some vinegar to the soup. So it was already a bad tasting soup because of the lack of pepper or the lack of salt, and then you added something that further what was also not good. We say it's not considered nice and tam lefgam because it was pogum already. It already had a bad taste. The only time it's going to be nice and tam lefgam if it was salted properly and was peppered properly, and then you put in something, the vinegar, the yayin nesach vinegar, that then ruined the taste. Then it's going to be nice and tam lefgam. That it's not going to be usser where you just put in a 60th. It's not going to be bottle. It will be bottle because it's pogum.
Because it's only bottle b'shishim.
No, well, what we're saying, it's not. We're saying that even if you have less than a 60th, or even something is nice and tam, if it's pogum the thing, it's still going to be mutter.
Even more than b'shishim.
Even more than 1 out of 60. It's like 1 out of 50.
Right.
It will still be mutter because it's lefgam. But we're saying if that only helps you if it's actually being pogum because of the bad taste of the thing you're putting in now, the isser. But if it was already bad tasting because of something else, because of a different factor, that it was unsalted. So now, if you put in 1 out of 50 of this vinegar, even though the vinegar makes it taste worse, it's still going to be also because we don't consider that to be mefagim. It's not harming the taste of the dish. It can't be talking about that it's missing something, it has too much salt or extra salt, it doesn't have enough spice or it has extra spice. Elahashta mia pugma. It's only if when you add this extra ulcer vinegar, for example, that it's only if the pagam would happen by itself. But if you're adding the pagam of the vinegar on top of the pagam of the salt, because let's say the salt, the extra salt wasn't enough to ruin it, but then you added also extra vinegar and you put the two of them together, and that's what causes it to be pagam. So he's saying it takes this is in order for it to not be nice and tam, it has to be that you needed the other thing to be paigim. That means if this vinegar by itself wouldn't have been paigim it, but it's only because there's also extra salt, that's what's paigim it. So he's a little more makel than the original pshat. According to the original pshat, as long as it's paigim from something else, the pagam of the vinegar is irrelevant, even if there's enough vinegar to be paigim in itself. According to the second shot, it's coming to say that the vinegar has to be sufficient to be paigim it itself without the help of the salt. But if it's enough to be paigim itself, it doesn't make a difference. There's also salt that could be paigim it. That wouldn't take it out of being nice and tam lefgam. It's talking about how much of the isser has to be there in order to, you have to have that it's fully doing the pagam on its own. And the Gemara brings a right that this second pshat is correct. Amr Bavo, Amr B'yechan, Kol Shetami Mamashai, Aser Loiken Alav. Whenever you have something aser in something mutter, if you have both the taste and the actual substance of the iser is present in the mixture, it's going to be aser, and you're going to get malchus on it.
Versus what? What do you mean by mashay aser? Like
that means, let's say you have we're not talking about over here like vinegar that this dissipates. If you have a bunch of aser peas that you mix into a thing of soup, and you see the peas there, so it's going to remain aser. This is not where the rye is coming from. We're not talking about the din bitter. The zelk das kazais, but the yachilus pras. If he eats a kazais of these, let's say truma peas or arla peas. I don't think there's arla on peas. Arla pieces of apple in your compote. If you eat a kazayis of the apple within a kerechilas pras as you're eating the compote, it's awesome. Tamay veloy mamashay. But if it's something dissolved, like for example, you have milk into a chicken soup. So you have the tam of the milk, but you don't have the substance. Also, the ain loiken alav. You're not going to get malchus on it. Like Rashi says, there's nothing be'en. You're not going to get, it's also to eat it, but you're not going to get malchus because midaraisa, it's bottle. It's not going to be also, it's not going to get malchus.
So at what point are you going to get malchus? It's talking about when it's more than b'shisha, right? It's 1/50th of milk fell into fleisha kapat.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's usher. So, but at what point are you going to get malchus? I mean,
well, the point is it's just a tam. There's no actual meat. I mean, Taisus is very bothered by this, as you are. Like he has we have a what do you call it? A visceral reaction to the idea of putting milk into chicken soup. And Taisus says that Lamaisa, what you're doing is you're getting a tam of milk into the meat, so the meat that you eat in the soup should be awesome. So maybe talking about a chicken soup that doesn't have any meat, so it's not you're not if you have chicken soup, well, first of all, there's no deraisa on chicken soup, I think, altogether, right? Chicken is not the meat deraisa. But if you have just a soup that doesn't have any pieces in it, it's also just a tam of the soup even though we know like it's fat coming from the chicken, but it's not. It could be considered just a tam of. That's why I say basar v'chalav is not so easy to get asa deraisa. You have to have milk and meat together, and you don't really have meat. So anyway, Taisus goes into this. Taisus talks about he doesn't like Rashi's example. Zok to Gemara. But then the Gemara says, the Brisa says, V'imriba tam lefgam mutter. If this milk that was added to the chicken soup was not making it taste better, but it made it taste worse. It's a cream of chicken soup which does not makes it worse. Then it's mutter. V'lema imnasan tam lefgam mutter. Why does it say if it was marba a tam lifgam? Why doesn't it say imnasan tam lifgam is mutter? Hakamash maland avagav the ikamila achanaisa de pagmadai. This is talking about the case the ikadamri, where there are other things that were also making a tam lifgam. That means it had too much salt in it, and then you added this milk, and it also made it not taste good. So it's only because that this pagam only happened together with the other thing that was also. I'm saying with the part that was mutter. Let's say the salt is mutter. It was only paigim. The milk itself wouldn't have been paigim. It was only paigim in conjunction with the extra salt that it's going to be considered nice and tam lefgam in mutter. So this is a raya like the Lishna Basra of what this chiddush that we said, Lagabi Nois and Tam Gam, that it could even be pogum together with using something else in addition, something mutter together, you could be mitzdarf with it to be pogum. Lishna Basra Rish Lakish. Amrav Kahana Medivrei Kulam Nilma Nois and Tam Gam mutter. From all of these different halachas that we've seen, we saw a lot of different emendations and extra halachas Lagabi Nois and Tam Lefgam. We see all these people who said it were holding that obviously Nois and Tam Lefgam is mutter. You're right about all of them. Elder Rish Lakish Amru Ka'amar B'leiloi Svirlei. Rish Lakish, you have a technical problem. Rish Lakish didn't say it himself. Rish Lakish said, what did he say it? He said it. When they said the din of Eis and Tal of Gam, he wasn't taking responsibility. He was just quoting, but he maybe doesn't hold of it. Okay. You know what? We'll stop over here, and tomorrow we'll start with the Manda Amr who holds Eis and Tal of Gam is awesome. I think we did some nice progress. I think we're almost caught up today. Shkaya. Oh, it's already 8:30.
Have a great day.
Okay, have a great day.